A friend of mine asked for some coaching on setting up a test block for installing dog holes in his spoiler board. And what he did was he sent me this file in Aspire, and you could do this in Aspire or in Vectric VCarve, either one. He has Aspire, so he sent it this one. And he said, please go through it step by step, basic, like you assume I don't know anything, because sometimes things go too fast while I'm still trying to learn this process. And so that's what I'm going to do. This is for the absolute beginner, setting up a file inside of Vectric software for building some dog holes for his spoiler board. To do that, he sent me this PDF file. And so I'm going to use this PDF file as a reference for setting up these dog holes, and I'm going to change just a couple things. As the person I was coaching asked, I'm going to do everything he asked for. And that is, I'm going to assume that he doesn't know much, if anything, about the Vectric software. I'm using Aspire because that's the file he sent to me, but everything I'm talking about applies exactly to Vectric VCarve or VCarve Pro also. So all of this, if you're using any one of the Vectric softwares, you should be able to follow along with. Here are the key tools that I am going to discuss as I set up this test block for him. One, I'm going to talk about the set object size or resize tool under the transform objects. Two, I'm going to talk about how you can use math in the actual data fields to calculate the values you're trying to achieve. I'm also going to talk about using the dimension tool to measure and record object measurements in the Create Vector section of the toolbar. Then I'm also later going to talk about using the dimension tool versus the measurement tool. The measurement tool is in the Edit Object section and why you would use that instead of the dimension tool. I'm going to talk about how to turn on and turn off the snapping to make it easier to use the dimension tool and the measurement tool. I'm going to talk about mirroring selected objects, both in the horizontal and in the vertical positions. I'm going to talk about using the text tool to place text, and that tool is under the Create Vector section. Going to talk about centering objects vertically to the last vector, centering objects horizontally to the last vector, and centering objects like a bullseye in the very center of the last vector. I'm going to talk about establishing layers, and I'm going to talk about developing toolpaths, not using layers, and developing toolpaths with layers. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about using the Z variable to refer to material thickness when I'm setting up toolpaths. So as you can see, there are a lot of topics when we're just talking about a basic test block. And that's why people can get confused and we jump to more advanced topics without covering the basics sometimes. And so in this video, I will be covering the basics. If it's too basic, remember you can always fast forward through it. And also, as you're watching this, let me know if you think this was helpful. He has the reference on the bottom, then he works negative, and then he starts working positive. And my recommendation, he accepted it, is to put the reference in the 0 and then work down in negative and work up in positive. So that's what we're going to do as we set this test block up. So the way we're going to do that is by, and let me put this out of the way so it doesn't keep turning off on us. The way we're going to do that is this is the center block, and the central block over here is 26.82. I'm going to go ahead and use this resize tool under transform objects. So it's right here, resize, selected here. I'm selected the circle, and he wants it to be 26.82 millimeters. All of these are going to be in millimeters. And now, so I'll put 26.82 millimeters, and I'll hit apply. So the next hole down, he wants 0.02 millimeters less. And so there's two ways we can do that. One, if we want to depend on the math, we can do 26.82 minus 0.02 and hit the equal sign, and that will give us the next size down in 0.02 inches. Now, that would be good if we didn't have everything written out, because that would allow the math to be done by the computer and less chance for mistake. But since he has this already written over here, I'm going to go to the next one, which is 26.78, and I'm going to write it in there. So either way will work. hit apply. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make that one, going back to his drawing, 26.76. So we're going down by 0.02 millimeters each time we move through the process. Hit apply and hit close. And I'm doing that because I want to show you how I want to validate that this is working the way I want it. So I'm going to go here to the dimension tool, and I'm going to make sure that my snapping is on up here. And so then I'm going to start with 0 so that it snaps right here. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to bring this over, and you notice how this box moves around. I pull it out to the right and then this box moves where I want it. And I'm going to put it right there because I like the way it looks. And I'm using the length dimension. So if I come over to the reference, he wanted the reference 26.82. So that means I've got that just what I wanted. So now I'll go to the next one down. And this is a second check. And that's 26.8. Go to the next one down. That should be 26.78. Go to the next one down. And that should be 26.76. And you can see that that all aligns with what he's got over here, just in reverse order. Hit close. We're going to go through the process and do it one more time. So we're going to grab this circle here, go over to the transform objects, resize, set objects size, and I'm going to make that one 26.84, 26.82 plus 0.02, 26.84, apply. And this one, I said, so he doesn't get confused later, we should keep those in 0.02 increments because he had jumped up 3. So we're going to keep this one in 0.02 increments. We're going to make this one 26.86 versus 26.87 that he originally had. And this one here, we're going to make 20. Then we're going to come up to the next one, and we're going to make that 26.88. 26.88. Hit apply. And now we changed all of these. So let's go back to use the dimension tool. There's two tools that measure things. One is the dimension, and it adds the actual dimensions. And the other one that people get confused with is edit objects and measure. So let me show you the difference. If I hit measure and I hit distance over here between two distances, and I select that and I come down here, it's going to tell me over here that that's 26.84. But as soon as I go off of it, it goes away. That's not what I want. I want to go to the dimension, which is different because it will actually record it. So now we're going to come up here to the snap, come back down here, bring it across. That's 26.84. And as long as I don't get out of the dimension tool, I can start again with each circle. And this here is 26.88. So we've validated it again, 26.84, 26.86. Remember, we changed this, and 26.88. We're doing just fine. So now what I want to do, hit close here, is another thing he wanted is these circles, these screw holes in the corners instead of in the center. So we're going to put a screw hole there. And I didn't get the size that he wanted for those, so I'm going to leave those the way they are, and he can adjust those if he wants to later. Delete that one. So let me show you another trick. There's two ways I can duplicate this hole. One across the center of the drawing. So one is I can hit it here, and I can use this feature right here and say flip about job center. So if I hit flip horizontal, you can see it comes right over here. And then I can come over here and select this one here, and I can set flip vertical, and it selects both of them and flips it vertical. So there's a shortcut for that, and I'll explain that in another video at some other time. For right now, you can flip them using those tools. So now we have all of the various sizes over here that I can see on my file. I have my screw holes, I have my dog holes, and the next thing I want to do is I want to actually put the text next to each of these holes so that I'll know what the size of this hole is without having to open up Aspire all over again. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab the text tool and I'm going to put it on Arial. That's fine. 0.5 millimeters is probably good. I'll just leave it at that. And so the first thing that I want to do is the first text that I want to put in here is 26.88 right here. 26.88. Now that I've got that, I'm going to go to another one, and I'm going to put 26.86. 26.86. And I should have put that more in the center, but I'll do that in a minute. And this one's 26.84. And this one here is 26.82. This one here is 26.80. Don't worry about them being out of line. 26.78. And the reason I'm doing this is so later I can look at the test block and see what these were. 26.76 without opening the Aspire file. And I'm going to hit close. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right in the center. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to grab this vector first, and then I'm going to grab this vector, and that means this vector will adjust to this vector. And I'm going to put it like right over here, so that means center of this vector. So I'm going to grab this vector and this vector, the last one is what it's going to align to, and we're going to go right in the center vertically. And I'm going to hit File, Save As, Dog Hole Test Rev 2 for me. It's saved. So now I've got these all aligned center. So now what I want to do is I want to align them all this way. It's not necessary, but it's good to do because it just looks right to me. So I'm going to grab all those by bringing, notice what I did was I brought a square, take my cursor and move it all the way around them, grabbed them all. Notice I didn't grab this one because this is the one I'm going to line up to. Hit the Shift key and grab it last. And now I'm going to use this so it centers horizontally on the last vector. So now they're all aligned in this direction. So that's what I'm doing, and I think that will work out pretty well. I might also want to, so that I remember this was my reference hole, I could do a very similar thing by taking the text tool, and I'm going to say this was reference 0. And I could say this was reference 0.02, or plus 0.02 I should put. The next one up here I would put plus 0.04. And I would put plus 0.06. And I would put minus 0.02. Notice I'm not worried about whether they're lining up right at the moment. And then I'm going to say minus 0.04, minus 0.06. All right. Close. I've got all the text I want. So the first thing that I'm going to do, just like I did before, was I'm going to grab all of these. And because I know these are in a line, I can grab this one now last, and I can hit that center horizontal like I did before. And now they're all right in the center. And I can center them up in one of two ways since this is a circle. I can grab this one, and I can do it the vertical way, or the other way I could do it is grab this one, and use the center from the last vector selected. So either way will work. So now we have everything centered up. The next step is to actually set up the toolpaths. But before I do that, I want to show you something I would normally do. So the next thing I would do is, it's a very good practice. I always like to use layers because it makes setting up toolpaths much easier in the long run if you get in that habit. And also you can set up templates, which is not a subject for this video, but for some other time. I'm going to start setting up layers. So you can see when I put the dimensions in with the dimension toolpath, it set up its own layer. So I'm not going to mess with that. So I'm going to take this first layer and I'm going to call this screw holes. And I'm going to, let's just make that, I like to keep them colored. I'm going to make that this burgundy color. And so screw holes I need to now populate. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to grab these and I'm going to hit shift, grab these. I'm going to hit the right mouse button and I'm going to hit move to layer screw holes. So now those are on their own layer. So let me set up the other layers that I want. I want dog holes, the physical dog holes themselves, and I'll make those, let's say, blue. And then I'm going to add a new layer, which is text for dog holes. And I'll make that, let's say, red. And then I'm going to add one more layer, which we're not really going to use much of other than have it in the file. And I was going to say references, reference change. And that's going to be, I'll leave that black. That'll be fine. Okay, so those are the things we're going to want. So I'm going to first take and put my selection box around these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say move to layer dimensions. And then I'm going to take these holes and I'm going to select them one by one to try to avoid selecting other parts that I don't want. And I'm going to move those to layer dog holes. All right, now let me come over here to dimensions. I want dimensions. I didn't want to move those to dimensions. I just realized that. I want to take these right here and I want to move these to layer text for dog holes. So if you already caught that, good on you. So I got my dog holes, I got my text for dog holes, I got my screw holes. And so now what I can do is I can go through here and I can turn off each of those things. So somehow my screw holes ended up grabbing these, and that's not where I want them. So let me take all these except my screw holes off. And now I can have just these available. I'm going to go around those. See, they are all purple. I'm going to hit move to layer. This new layer, I thought I called it references, so I must not have, I'm going to move it to layer 1. And layer 1, I'm going to rename as references. Somehow I thought I did that. I must have missed it. So now I can turn on and turn off all of these various layers and look at them individually. So the next thing I want to do, this is a set of dog holes toolpath that he originally set up not using any layers. So let me show you how you can do that not using any layers. So if I take the dog holes, if I go to Z and I use this toolpath, this is an upcut bit that he's got, a 1/4 inch upcut bit, and I use a offset toolpath, it will go down in a circular pattern, and that's what we want. And you want to use an upcut, not a downcut, because you can cause a fire pocketing with a downcut. I mean, this size of downcut you could probably use, but I prefer to use upcuts for smaller holes. And so we're not going to ramp the plunge move. No need to do that using a raster. And we are going to manually select the vectors, which are all selected here in this purple color, as you see. And then I'm going to hit calculate. And then I'm going to hit preview visible, because I've got this selected right here, preview visible. And that's what our dog holes are going to look like. Now, if I want to keep it all in manual mode, I can add one more toolpath, which is what I would do, is I would come over here to V-carve toolpath. I would grab all of these text right here. No flat depth. He's got a very sharp V-bit here. This is equivalent to about a 15-degree V-bit or so. I hit calculate, but before I do, I'm going to put text. no layers because I'm not using the layer function. Hit calculate. And now what you see, preview visible, is now on his test block, he'll always have the numbers that each of those refer to if he ever wants to try to put other test dogs in them. So I'm going to hit close on this. So that's one way to do it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit preview reset. And I'm going to show you the way that I would normally do it because I set up the layers ahead of time. So I would, once again, I'd come over to the pocket toolpath. I would put Z in here. You can put the actual depth. He's still got the upcut bit. That works good. Offset. And the only thing I would do different, instead of grabbing each one so I could get them, I would come over here and I would select close vectors, associate with dog holes, hit close. You see it grabs those purple vectors. And I'm going to say dog holes, layers, hit calculate. And now you can see we've got those selected. The next thing I would do is I would use the V-carve toolpath, and everything else looks the same, just like it did before. Oh, I hit the wrong toolpath up there. The V-carve toolpath, everything else is like it was before. Nothing needs changed here. But instead of manual, I'll put selector, associate with toolpath, take off dog holes, and I'll put text for dog holes, hit close, hit calc. Oh, let me change this over to text, layers, hit calculate. And we'll preview that visible tool, those visible toolpaths as they sit. Okay, so that's good. The next thing I would do is I would go ahead and set up another pocket toolpath, and I'm going to put Z in here again. And instead of this bit, it's a 1/4 inch bit, these are going to be 1/8 inch holes. So I'm going to select that bit, and I'm going to make those 1/8 inch holes. So let's just come over here and get an 1/8 inch bit. All right, that's a spiral upcut, 1/8 inch bit. He'll have to change it to whatever he wants. We're going to get rid of this 1/4 inch one. We're going to use that. Offset again. We're going to select. And we're going to close over here. And we're going to go screw holes. Get rid of text for dog holes. Now we'll put screw holes. We'll hit close over here. Put screw holes here. Screws. Layers. Calculate. Preview. So now this test pattern for this spoiler board dog holes is all set and ready to carve. And that's all there is to it. And it matches up with this one here. And it is using layers instead of manual selection. And the advantage to layers is that later on, if you change any one thing here and you keep it on the right layer, it will automatically change so you don't have to remember to select each vector in the future. There's a lot more to using layers, but if you get in the habit of using layers now, you'll be better off. Folks, that's another wrap. I hope you learned a thing or two in watching this tutorial. It turned out to be a little bit longer than I thought it would be, and I would enjoy feedback from you whether you thought this tutorial was helpful, especially if you're in the beginner category. We make some assumptions about how much knowledge people need when they're starting out, and I think sometimes that makes it a little harder for people to learn. So I wanted to take the time to go through this process as if the person didn't know much about Vectric software at all. Please take time to like, comment, share with others, and leave me feedback about what you'd like to see in the future. I will be making more basic videos if I get enough feedback that says it was worth your time. And as always, if you can subscribe, that would be always helpful, especially if you want to see future videos when they are released. Hope you're having a good time learning the software and getting out and making chips or 3D prints or laser cutting, whatever it is you like to do. Have a great day.